To open session. Good, Dan. Okay, Mr. Terpster, could you give us a readout of closed session, please?
Sure. The council did meet tonight in closed session starting at 5 p.m. and ending just a few minutes ago, and received an update from staff on pending litigation, JKB Living versus City of Ripon, as well as some background information from our water experts in relation to well 3. Staff was given direction, but no further reportable action was taken.
All right, thank you. And if we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing for the invocation. Mr. Ecr, would you lead us, please?
Follow me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Lord, we come before you humbly in this evening just to seek your blessing upon this meeting and all the decisions that are made here. Lord, we pray that you would be with each of your civil servants as they strive to serve this community here in Ripon. Lord, we pray again that you would just bless them, be with them, give them strength and wisdom, discernment, understanding, all that they need, Lord, in this time. We pray this all in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, Lisa, could you do a roll call, please?
Councilmember Tim Wheeler. Here. Leo Zuber.
Here.
Mike Verstucha.
Present.
Vice Mayor Dean Euchre.
Here.
Mayor Daniel DeGraff.
Here. That's not your button. All right, public discussion. This time is provided for members of the public to address items that are not on the agenda. Is there anybody that would like to make a comment? You can step forward, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, I think, is the time, but go ahead. 30 seconds now.
Thank you, Mayor. We have me and my wife here. We live at 1110 Pleasant Bay Drive here off of here in Ripon. So we have a store called Little Cottage Antiques. We've been here since February. We moved our store from Modesto to Ripon so we could have our business here where we live. We enjoy Ripon a lot. We live here and our family's all here. So we opened up the store. The only thing is we've been having, there's no signage on the street for us. We are in the back of the parking lot behind the Roadhouse. I don't know if anybody's been back there recently. It's a very nice area, big parking lot for us. Our address is 113 East Main. And I don't know if since the building's been there, nobody's thought about it being a retail store and looked into it having a signage out on one side of the parking lot, off of Main Street, or in front. So we've put out some small A-frames. Most vendors out there, most retail stores and restaurants have a A-frame out there. We get calls, we got to pick our A-frame up, which is fine. We know the ordinance. We're not looking for us to break the law with the A-frames, but we're looking at to see if we could come up with a solution with at least one sign on Main Street towards the end of Main Street, showing that our store is back there. And we've done a lot of work there, and that's because we get customers, our followers. We've done Facebook, we've done Instagram, we do the book, we did Manteca Bulletin. We're out in everything. So when we do get the call, they're saying, well, you need to publicize in everything, social media. We've done that. Me and my wife's worked hard for it and has done that. So all we're asking is if we could come up with some type of solution to come up with maybe a sign, one sign directing traffic that knows that we're back there. I think that in the past, nobody's really had a retail back there, and it's just been overlooked. Whoever rents the building and has their business there has never thought about having signage out there. I think it's just one thing that the city council and the city itself has overlooked in that part. So, I mean, we've been told that, you know, you should have looked at that before you rented it, which I think it's wrong. I think the retail business there brings a little bit of economy from our clients that come from out of town to the restaurants there also. And since we've been in the magazine lately, in the Ripon magazine, a lot of residents didn't even know we were there. We've had a lot of them come in this week, today also, and they didn't know that we were even back there, because there's no direction on the signage. So we really thank the chambers for putting us in that magazine and letting us be a part of it. So, and that's what all I like to say. You okay? So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
I will just add, I think it's partially part of our downtown circulation plan is to maybe consider additional plans for signage, or maybe more ways to identify where businesses are. And it's something we've at least talked about briefly. I don't know what long-term is, but we do also have a committee between the council where issues like this could be brought to have discussions about how to make changes to the ordinances and things like that too. So that's certainly something you guys would be interested in. I think we could probably at least sit down and talk about what types of changes might be considered. So thank you. All right. Is there anybody else, no one else from the public here? Lisa, was there any comments submitted that need to be read?
No public comments were submitted.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will move on to approval of the minutes for the special council meeting on June 3rd, the regular meeting on June 8th, and the special meeting on June 30th.
So move.
Is there a second? Second. A mover and a second, and we will go on an online vote here.
It's a nice store, by the way.
Okay, approval of the agenda as posted or amended. Is there anybody that needs to pull anything off the consent calendar?
I'd like to pull 1.3A.
1.3A. Is there anything else that needs to get pulled off? Okay, with that, is there a motion for,
Excuse me,
oh, sorry.
I believe we also want to pull 1.4E.
We're gonna,
We're just,
we're gonna withdraw that item and bring it back at a future meeting. There was a problem with the description of the property.
1.4E. Okay, so it's just getting pulled. Okay, so with that, is there a motion for approval of the agenda as amended?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I want to just call a vote and you guys have at it. Okay, approval of the consent calendar as amended.
So moved.
Second. Oh.
That's all right, we'll take it.
Oh.
Yeah, go for it.
He
It's
did.
fine. All right, so now approval of 1.38. Mike, you have questions?
Yeah, are you gonna move that to where we can see? Okay.
I'm not.
Okay, so the only question I have, and I'm sorry I didn't ask you ahead of time because it's kind of minor stuff, but this is all paper stuff, I'm assuming, right? So when do we start going digital with everything, or have we? Okay, so since we have, we're gonna continue on this process for a while then.
that's correct.
Okay. Are we gonna ever go digital?
Never say never.
Well, I mean, then you never
I
have to
won't
worry
say
about getting
never.
rid of anything because it's just gonna be stored forever.
But our process, I think, works well, and we have the storage for what our retention schedule is at this point.
Good answer. Thank you. Approved that we, I move that we approve it.
And the clerks kind of do things old school, so we do keep a lot of paper.
Okay, I move to approve.
I can't call for a vote on this one, so
You can't? How come?
I don't know. Computer doesn't let me. Can Jane call for a vote? No.
No, it's still blacked out.
Yeah,
There, I
there
can
we
do it.
go.
The vice
Okay.
mayor can.
Sure, yeah. Tom, you have something to say before we finish our vote here?
No, I was just indicating that the vice mayor could call for the vote in the absence of the mayor. But you're already past me.
Gotcha, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, and then we don't need to take any action on the item that was pulled, correct? So we will, that's in the consent calendar, 2A, resolution. Designated the voting member and delegate, voting delegate and alternate to the League of California Cities Annual Conference. And taking this one, Jane, Kevin?
So this is the League of Cities is beginning to do in-person conferences again. This is the first one. And in the past, the council has decided to send a council member or two at times. So tonight's item is just to see if the council has a desire to send somebody or two council members, and to also designate who would be the voting delegate.
So if I can make a comment, I looked at the agenda and, you know, I respect the League of Cities and all that they do. I didn't see anything on there that I felt was worth the time for me to go. So if somebody wants to go, I'd be more than happy to let somebody go, but I didn't see anything on it that I thought was valuable for me, and I don't want to spend city money on something I
As
didn't
I
see worth it for
recall,
me.
that has kind of been the approach we've taken in the past also, right?
I don't know.
I don't recall us in the past 5 years sending voting delegates for the sort of the same reason. We didn't think we got the value out of it, correct?
The only thing I would say is that, and I don't know if it's changed very much, but back when I first got elected to the council, the training that they give new council members, I think you have to go up half a day early or something, or it's the first half. I always thought was valuable because it gave me a list of things to look for, if nothing else, whenever this whole started. So I think it's something that maybe Tim ought to think about, but I have to say this year, I have to agree with Mike. I looked at that agenda and I thought, my goodness, it seems like they're, you know, they didn't really know what to plan for. And I can respect that. I don't mean that necessarily as a negative comment, but they're coming out of COVID and trying to put something together personally, and I'll wait a year.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we should send a new elected guy.
Well, he's got to see if it fits his calendar.
Well, yeah, I would
You already
suggest that he
told me.
look, because it is
I
valuable.
agree with what you said, like when I
there's too
first
much
elected, I went to the Brown Act
Well,
class,
so
and
do
it
you.
did help me a lot, you know, but I agree though. I mean, we don't need, it sounds like my councilman to my left really doesn't want to go anyway, so.
Do we need a motion not to send anyone?
No, we
Just move on.
we're not.
Can I ask a quick question? Are you going to think about it or you're not going to go?
I can think about it.
Okay, well then.
If you guys want me to go, I can really think about it.
Okay, so can we do this and can we approve him to go if he decides to go? Therefore, it's already approved, and then you figure out what.
Figure out whether or not you really want to
If
go.
you, yeah, then you talk to Julie, and she'll set you up.
Yeah, I mean, if he still says no, he doesn't want to go, then
Then we don't have to sign. it.
Right.
no harm, no foul.
It's a good idea.
Okay, so then I would make a motion that we approve Tim to go if Tim
So desire.
decides he wants to go and can.
Can I,
go.
can I wait? If I'm gonna go, I'll pay for it. I don't need the city to pay for it. I'll just pay on my name.
No, you'll go, we'll pay.
We'll pay you the city pays.
We're investing in you.
Some investments work out, some don't.
Oh, they all work out.
We're willing to take that risk.
Okay, well, I can't call a vote again. I don't know.
That's not lighting up.
Mm-mm. There we go. Whoops.
You move. I'll
Yes.
second.
Okay, it passes by a vote. Resolution 2B, adopting the city budget for fiscal year 2021, 2022. Mr. Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've talked about this probably a few different times now, so I'm not going to spend too much time going over it, the budget, but I did want to point out one change that has been made since the last time we spoke. I did add in a capital outlay project, and that is to improve the library parking lot. We're planning to put a slurry seal over that. So that was added to the budget at a cost of $38,000, and that would be paid for through the general fund department capital fund. The other thing I just wanted to point out, because this is probably the largest policy change to the budget, and this really came out of the policy goals and implementation workshop that we had. As far as the street and road capital projects, we do show in the budget 3 years of those projects, and we show 3 years because of the time it takes to prepare for those projects for environmental clearance and engineering to do their work. And we try to get as much grant money to offset the amount that the city is contributing, like what you've seen on Stockton Avenue. But with the direction we're going now, we're essentially splitting the amount of money that goes towards capital improvement projects 50-50 between preventive maintenance projects and reconstruction projects. So in this 3-year budget, there is about $2.7 million going to various preventive maintenance projects, and then about $2.6 million going to reconstruction projects. The one thing I would point out as far as reconstruction projects go, and what we tried to do, if you recall, and I don't have the graph with me, but we have that graph that shows those red areas, red streets around town. Through really both sides of this table, we try to address those. So the preventive maintenance projects includes the Ripon area, includes the overlay at River Road, Walnut, Locust, Elm, not the streets that have the heavy crowns, but more towards the community center area. And then also Denise, Jennifer, Stanley, that area to the east of Jacktone Road. So those are the preventive maintenance projects. And the reconstruction projects, it included Cobblestone Court and Santos Avenue. And Santos Avenue would be between the Flying J driveway and all the way to, what was it?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, it's Colony's parallel. There.
And with the direction from council, these reconstruction projects would be done in pavers, so there would be no future obligation of street and road money. And as far as reconstruction, if the council wanted to look at other items, we kind of just chose items that we thought were in the worst condition. But like roads like Santos, there is maintenance we could be doing to keep that road as serviceable as possible. But there are other opportunities in Ripon. Obviously, there's a lot of roads in need, and some other options for the council's consideration. One of them we're going to talk later on in the agenda tonight about the downtown master plan. And some of those roads could be included in there. You could include alleys as part of that reconstruction, or you can include like the community center parking lot. Obviously, there's a lot of needs out that could be in this reconstruction category, just not enough money to do them all. So that is something right now in the budget is Santos Avenue, but again, it's 3 years out. So if something changes, you know, in the near future, we can certainly switch out that project.
I have something about it. I understand Santos Avenue looks bad, but there are streets, residential streets that I think are almost as bad. And that's what I hear more than anything else. John Q. Public is more aware of his own street than he is Santos Avenue. If I'm a truck driver who's delivering stuff out there someplace, I'm aware of Santos Avenue. But even somebody who goes to one of the gas stations out there doesn't drive on Santos. But if there are streets in town that need some work, I think we need to push those a little more, because that's, you know, that's what I hear about all the time. When are you guys going to do something about the streets and roads? Stockton Avenue is out there in front of God and everybody. And everybody is aware of what's going on and they're appreciative. But Santos isn't. I've mentioned this to you before. I'd like somebody to go look at Madison, because I went out there and looked after I mentioned it to you, and it's pretty bad. And we're going to get a lot more, I think, public support if a street like Madison Drive is fixed up than if Santos Avenue is fixed up.
And we could certainly go look at Madison. We have had a lot of success with the 3-layer treatment system. You may recall, it's probably been 5 years ago now, where we tested that type of treatment system. There were some minor dig outs, some areas where just the structural foundation has given away and was no longer usable. We do replace those, but in general, the foundation of the street was still in good shape, but the asphalt itself was heavily oxidized, heavily cracked. And with the 3-layer treatment system, we're able to extend the life of those roads rather than putting millions and millions of dollars into those roads. It's not ideal, but it's just kind of the reality we have with limited money. And really the only reason we're able to talk about the kind of money that we're talking about right now being available is because of we plan to do Stockton Avenue with city funds. We were fortunate enough to get grants to do it. So it has provided an opportunity really to focus on other roads in Ripon. We can certainly look at Matson Avenue. It's been a while since I've been there. My gut feeling is you may be able to get by with the 3-layer system, and we could add that and look at that. But the reconstruction is an opportunity. And what I could do if the council wants right now, instead of listing Santos Avenue in here, I could put it to be determined. And that gives us a little bit of time to look at what is the priority of the council.
Yeah, I agree with Leo. I think that's right. Santos needs to be done, but there are some other more used
Right.
roads that I've never heard a complaint about Santos, quite frankly. even
That's
truck
because
drivers.
nobody's ever driven on it.
No, they do. They drive on it all the time, but they drive on this other stuff more.
Sure. And I think the difference is people's property.
And they don't care
values.
what it's like.
It's people's property values when it's in front of their
Yeah,
house.
yeah,
And this is something that
yeah.
improves that, whereas Santos,
Yeah.
it doesn't provide that.
Well, and I live on a street that had the 3-layer
Right.
treatment done. I don't have a problem with it because it's working fine. And if I'm told that Madison can be done with a 3-layer treatment, I'm good for that too. But then it puts it in a different place in the hierarchy
Yep.
because
Right.
we can get much more of that done
Right.
than we can the other. But
Yes,
if
sir.
the word comes back that it needs to be rebuilt,
And if you
I'm
don't
gonna
do
say
it-
it ought to be moved ahead of Santos Avenue. That's all I'm saying.
if you don't do the 3-layer treatment in the short term, pretty soon it'll be in.
Right,
category
exactly.
two.
I
So
agree.
if you have the ability to do it, you can do it now.
Yeah.
When I was told that Mulholland was gonna get that 3-layer treatment, I thought, good luck, because it was a mess.
Yeah.
And it's holding up fine.
It is, and it still requires more. There's gonna be a slurry seal that's gonna have to happen within the next 5 years. So, but what it allows you to do is just put a lot less money into those
Right.
roads and frees up the millions of dollars of
Yep.
reconstruction for the real priority projects. So for now, staff could go, we could evaluate Matson Avenue. We could update this table, and for now in the budget, I'll put Santos Avenue to be determined, and we can make that decision
Right.
with more information.
The only thing I would like, Kevin, is when we repave the library, I'm not an engineer and I know you guys know how to squeeze parking spaces in. Maybe to see if you can get a few more parking spaces in there too. I mean, if you got 2 or 3, I mean, that's 2 or 3 we don't have.
Yeah, we certainly could
Okay.
look at how to maximize parking
Okay.
while we restrike it.
Thanks.
I'll turn mine on. Dean has a question.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to make a comment.
Put your microphone on.
Between you two guys, I ditto what they say. I completely agree with that. I would rather see citizens' housing areas done to make the community happier than Santos. But I'm not saying we don't do Santos, but we really need to start getting on the, and I've been out to Madison. You can almost grow corn on there and not have a problem. Yeah.
Places where the weeds are almost as high as freshly.
Exactly.
We'll definitely look at
So
that.
you have the direction you need? Do we need to take action on that then, approve it with,
Yeah,
any-
because it's approval.
Yeah.
it's approval of a resolution, budget, but with a direction that we provided
Yeah.
to make those changes.
With the change of replacing Santos Avenue with to be determined in
And take a look at
Matson Avenue.
and take a look at the library
Yep.
restriping. Okay, I'll make a motion.
I can't call a vote.
Again.
There we go.
I'll second. Oh,
Wait.
You just gotta go for it. He's just anxious.
He wants to get home, I know.
Okay, we'll get out by 6:30, Dean. Don't
We're
worry.
going to. Moving on to public hearings, 3A, consideration of funding allocations for CDBG CV-1 and CV-3 grant funds. I believe this is Ken.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. Essentially, the Federal Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, the CARES Act, provided phased funding to the HUD, Department of Housing and Urban Development, for use in addressing community issues related to COVID-19 and future pandemic preparedness planning through the CDBG program, so administered through San Joaquin County. The city of Ripon, actually, with phase 1 and phase 3, San Joaquin County didn't get any funding for phase 2, is eligible to receive $54,000 roughly in phase 1 and $58,000. We did do a lot of research trying to figure out how to use some of these funds. There's a lot of different programs out there that other communities are doing, such as helping people getting behind in their utility bills, rent, other things. We reached out to Bethany Home looking for uses for these funds. It's hard to give away money, I guess. I don't know. Basically, there's a lot of kind of requirements to use the funds. You have to meet income qualifications for it. So like a lot of the cities that are doing programs where they're helping with individuals behind in utilities and rent, you have to income qualify each and every one of those. So it becomes a major staffing issue. So after much consideration and such, we did work with the county a little bit and came up with the senior center as a project that we can put these funds towards. The senior center is an automatic qualification for these funds because of just seniors automatically qualify. So we thought it was an easy project to apply these funds to, which would bring our funding for the senior center to about $350,000. At that point, we believe once we go out to bid, this would fully fund the project, and there could even be a little excess of funds, which if we don't spend them all, we can actually roll them over into a future project for next year's funding and such. So that is the recommendation in front of you tonight, is to allocate those funds towards the senior center. And this is a public hearing, so I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, any questions from the council?
I have one. What are we going to do at the community center for $350,000?
So we've been going back and forth a little bit with the architect on design. To the basically the original concept there was to add an outside patio area out front of the building, so it would face kind of Wilma, it'd be on the corner of Wilma and 4th Street, and then improve the facade of the building. There's a raised planter out front of the office space there that actually leaks kind of through the wall just because the soil up against the building and such. All that would be fixed along with the patio structure. We did have to take a step back a little bit, but when they started getting into the design, the structural engineering for it, and the walls we'd have to tear into to provide structural support for tying back into the roof line there. So they took a step back, and I think what's going to be proposed is more of a freestanding patio cover right outside, a little bit cheaper. You're not having to mess with the building as much as tying the roof structure back in. So that's kind of where we're at now. SKW is the architect working on that, and they should be finalizing the plans here shortly with an intent to go out to bid and get under construction by the end of this calendar year.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Nope. Open up the public hearing. Seeing nobody from the public. Nothing was submitted online, so we'll close the public hearing. And with that, is there a motion?
Is this an action item too?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the recommended funding.
Second. Okay, pass 5-0. Moving on to public hearing 3B. Annual assessments for the fiscal year 2021-22 for the city of Ripon's 10 landscape maintenance districts. Ken? No?
I'll take that one, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
I don't know why I thought I saw your name on the, I looked at the last one, sorry.
We do have 10 landscape maintenance districts. Of those districts, there is only one of them that staff is proposing an increase to. That's the Alexandra Maintenance District, and that's because at this point, the expenses are projected to be higher than the revenue next year. So we are recommending a 1.6% increase, which is allowed through the establishment or when the district was established.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Okay, we'll open a public hearing. Anybody from the public like to speak on this one? No. Any comments submitted online? No. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. And is there a motion? There has been and a second as well. You guys are fast.
Wow.
We're picking up the pace. We're learning.
I like it. Okay. Passes 5-0. C. Kevin again?
Yes, this is a public hearing for the landscape, or I'm sorry, the Ripon Lighting District. There is no change to the current assessment.
Any discussion from the council? Seeing none, open up the public hearing. None from the public. Any submitted? No. Close public hearing.
So move.
Perfect.
I couldn't beat him, but I let him go.
Passes 5-0. All right, moving on to.
Start assigning movers and seconds.
Now the youth, who's the fastest? 4?
I just wanted to be dean this time.
Yes. Okay. Ordinance 4A, ordinance number 905, ordinance of City Council of the City of Ripon, amending chapter 16.146, cargo container storage.
Second reading. Yeah, so did I.
No,
Ken, go ahead. I think this is you.
I don't have anything to add. This is
Mr.
second
Mayor,
reading.
I make a motion, we waive the second reading and adopt the ordinance.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
You're welcome, Ken.
can't, because
Whoa. Okay, everybody vote.
Next one's-
5-0,
next
yes.
one's tough.
4B. Ordinance sets the
Next
amount
one's
of
a
money
freaking
raised by
joke.
taxes necessary
I
to
know.
carry on the various functions of the city of Ripon at 0.00. Is there any discussion? Kevin?
Lisa's got a half-hour
Lisa?
presentation.
Could you cue the PowerPoint, please?
No, we don't need that.
So this is just our annual ordinance required to certify the 21-22 apportionment limits, also known as the GAN limits. In essence, it's saying that the taxes that we collect are below the ceiling that we are allowed to collect.
Excellent.
Hasn't changed for 20 years.
So first reading and adoption, we need a motion for that.
Well, I can't do it.
Okay, we'll just verbalize it and that'll get them going.
Okay.
That passes 5-0. Okay,
I didn't get me. I thought I had that one.
I don't know.
You're slowing
5A,
down.
downtown circulation study.
Is this you?
Don't fight it.
So we're on 5A. So the downtown circulation
Yes.
study. As council, we've been through this a few times, a little bit already. So at the May meeting, we reviewed some options for the downtown master plan. I think council provided staff direction to make a few amendments to the plan. So we were kind of maximizing parking instead of going backwards in parking. We did reach out to the consultant. They've made the final adjustments in the plan. Basically, there's a net increase of about 13 parking spaces with that adjustment in the downtown as opposed to losing a few. So that was a positive. Along with that, like I said, the plan's attached. It was attached to staff report for your reference there. We did put together a priority list for the council. This is about a $15 million proposed project that we would tackle in phases. That is obviously the consultant's estimates on these. We wouldn't know actual costs until we start getting into design of the individual projects. So they could vary depending on what we discover out there with the due diligence of utilities and such. But a priority list was attached for council to consider. And that's how we would kind of tackle these projects in these different phases, depending on what kind of funding we have in place and what kind of grant funding we might be able to obtain. We did kind of start with the worst streets in that area. I think Locust from 2nd Street to Main Street is probably the worst one in that area as far as asphalt and such, followed closely by 1st Street between Stockton and say Locust Avenue in that area with the Crown and such. So those are the top 2 on the list. And you guys can go through the list, I'm sure, as you have already. If you have any adjustments that you guys would like to make to that, we can shuffle those around too. So that's all I have. If I'll answer any questions.
So can I have a comment? And again, I don't know how all this is going to work out and all that, but what I took a look at from my standpoint, the priorities look good except for one. And what I looked at was number 8, which is the South Elm Avenue, Main Street and 2nd Street. I kind of thought that should have been moved up because three is north-south is an improvement, one north-south is an improvement. And then the other one's gonna be a north-south also to Main Street. And I just thought we should keep every road going into Main Street as a priority. Then, of course, you got number 2 already, rather than some of the alleys and some of these other things in there. But that was just my thought. And maybe there's some
And
reason why that wasn't.
And the only
included.
reason we kind of pushed it down the list a little bit is if you get over to Elm Avenue over there, South Elm Avenue, there, it's mostly residential at this point. And as you get closer to Acacia, it's most all residential in that area. So I think we feel that the improvements down First Street, when you start putting those in, and possibly some of the housing over there converting over to businesses, would start closer to Stockton Avenue and Walnut in those areas. And then Elm could be pushed out to later. But you're right, you don't, if you're switching Walnut to a one-way from Main Street to Second Street, you know, Elm was supposed to be the other street that's a one-way going from Second to First. It's kind of that loop there. You know, Elm would still remain as a two-way street at that way, so it wouldn't really affect it that much, but it's really what council desires. I mean, the only reason it was pushed out was because of, I think, the time frame maybe for some of that to convert.
Okay, well, that was my only comment.
I have one comment, and it's more tied to potential funding than anything else. This got started because there's going to be a significant chunk of change made available to the cities through Measure K over the next, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And it's fine to have a priority list, but the kind of games that get played by the staff as to what they decide they're going to focus on, I just want everybody to remember they're going to have to be flexible, because you may have a shot at $1.5 million, but to get it, you're going to have to work on the last 2 items on your priority list. And rather than try to force it up the list, which will be a waste of effort and a loss of money, just be willing to put it where you can get it rather than where you'd like it.
You're saying based on the way COG would allocate the funds?
Yep.
Okay.
They
all
may
right, see
come
that?
out with a set of requirements
Okay, I
that
got
will fit
Okay.
the
well, that-
last 2 items.
Get you,
Well, if you
okay.
don't do that, you just kissed off whatever you thought you were going to
Then I
get.
think that's the plan in there, right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think what illustrates that is we did get $1.3 million for the Second Street improvements that were included as part of this plan, but really staff selected that project was based off the criteria of scoring.
Okay.
Find a
That's
project
good
that
to know.
meets the funding, and
There, that's
rather than
exactly
try and
right.
tailor a project to
Get
the
the
funding.
money, you
That's
know?
good to know
Yeah.
then. Then I take back what I said.
No, like I said, the priorities, there's no
Yeah.
problem to just be willing to admit sometimes that you got to set the priorities aside to get the money.
Yeah, we may
You want-
stack it in number 4th place, but it may not happen until number 8 because of that. That's
This
good
helps,
to know.
this helps staff though, as we
Right.
look at that criteria,
good
we
to
know
know.
where the council priorities are at.
Yeah.
We could kind of bring the 2 together. So
Mm-hmm.
it definitely
That's
helps
good
us.
to know.
And depending on the budget and grant funds that we might receive, you might pull, like say you tackled Locust at one point, you might be able to pull the alley in that's with it right next to it. And it's not necessarily how on the priority list if you're going to tackle that as an individual project, but it might make some sense to do them together. So this is more of a direction for staff to be able to kind of start working
Yeah.
through some things. And then if it's a kind of a fluid list, if council wants to, or if we get some funding opportunities for other spots, we would definitely bring those back.
Good. All right.
Need a motion on this, or are we just?
Yeah, we would like a motion to adopt the plan and the priority list, and then we can kind of start working through some of these hopefully at some point.
So moved.
Second. Oops. Somebody beat me
What
to
the
it.
heck?
Somebody beat me to it.
You guys got to be quicker over there. Okay, 5B.
He's sitting
James?
over there just.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Honorable City Council. I do have a PowerPoint presentation, Dan, if you could bring it up. Did want to go over
He's
Senate,
already 10 minutes over his time.
only 20 slides, so we'll try and breeze through them.
How many slides?
This is important.
He was bragging about it.
Well,
He
yeah.
was gonna make us stay here all night.
Good, good.
Him and Chuck Wynn.
So Senate Bill 1383, organic waste methane emissions reductions. I've touched on this with council in the past. I haven't really dove into some of the details with you guys. So I'll kind of go through that now. Before we before we get started, we kind of wanted to set the stage and let you guys know what we've been going through for the past 4 years or so with our disposal fees, our tipping fees. You can see that they've been steadily increasing over the last 4 years, and most noticeably in our green waste. We've had a couple of things that have changed. These facilities are subject to a lot of the state regulations with the State Water Board, the Air Resources Control Board. So they are having to do improvements to their facilities as well. So that's where you see the big increase in the green waste. And really to kind of hit on our green waste and why that went up so much. At the end of 2019, the green waste compost facility that we took our waste to, which was right over here off of Hammett Road, they gave us a 60% increase without warning. And that was right at the end of 2019. So we started looking around at that time at other facilities, what was in the area. We were getting a very good rate, but a 40 or 60% increase is pretty substantial. And then at the beginning of 2020, once COVID hit, they shut down due to COVID, and they never opened back up. And they've got another plant in Vernalis. They said you could go there if you. To go with another facility that we found in Lathrop. They gave us a cheaper rate, but it's still more than what we were paying, and that's kind of where you see those increases. And they're steadily going up as well. And that facility that we were currently going to in Lathrop is they just completed construction on some of those state mandated Water Resource Control Board Air Board regulations.
So this increase in cost does not reflect an increase in the amount of green waste. It's simply an increase in what it's costing us to process the same amount of green waste.
Yeah, and I should have put the tonnage there. Our tonnage has been very, very stable over the last 4 years for green waste. There's a slight increase in 2021 for our solid waste, and we believe that was due to COVID and the recycling center shutting down. People were stuffing a lot more in there. But overall, it's been pretty stable as far as the tonnage goes.
So can I ask you a question? So these are privately held facilities. They're not government owned. But does the government raise their fees on these people as well? I mean, are we just funding larger government because of this? You may not know the answer.
Well, they're subject to regulation. Like this compost facility that we're currently going to right now, they were hit with certain fines if they didn't make certain improvements to their facility to prevent the compost material from getting down into the groundwater. So they had to go through, I don't know, $5 to $7 million worth of improvements.
Like concrete line, the whole thing.
Exactly, clay line. It had to do the whole stormwater, improvements. So they're dealing with that, and then the air board on top of that, and that's where they're kind of passing those costs, obviously, on to us to stay in business. So
This regulation.
All it is. But I'll sleep better at night.
So that's kind of where we're at right now with fees, but it gives you kind of an idea. So really what is SB 1383? Basically, it was a bill signed into law to reduce the methane emissions statewide, and it required Cal Recycle and the Air Resources Board to adopt regulations to reduce organic waste in our landfills. And why, you might ask? Well, according to the research performed by the state, 20% of the methane pollution is coming from organic waste in the landfills. The other two major sectors are the oil and gas and then the dairy industry, which are right around 26%. So, and you can see, half the tonnage that's dumped into California landfills right now is organic waste. So within that.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Sure.
While you're on that, it says require that, but to adopt, go back. I'm trying to read it.
His clicker's
No,
not
where
working.
you were.
He's trying. His clicker's not working well.
Sort of like the road thing.
Forward one, yeah. There you go.
Reboot. To adopt regulation designed to reduce statewide landfill disposal of organic waste. I mean, how do you, if the state keeps growing and people keep eating and doing stuff and mowing along, how do you actually reduce the organic waste?
Reduce it, fill to the landfill.
So what do you dump it in the street then? How do you,
Well,
I'm asking about.
yeah, and I'll get into some of that, but yeah, they're really wanting to go, they want you to take it to a compost facility. They want you to take it to the organic compost facilities where it's composted and that goes out to farmers, it goes out to, gardeners, it goes out, it's sold in places, and it's
Okay.
basically you're composting, getting rid of
Where it
it.
can be reused. Well, Lathrop has a facility like that.
Yeah, and we're using,
Yeah.
you the city of Lathrop, or are you talking about?
No, the one you're dumping at, they have a facility there where they redo it and they sell it as compost.
Right, and that's where we're taking.
That's where
we take.
Exactly, that's what I said.
So, and within that bill, they had certain targets, and this kind of goes back to what Mike was just saying, but they used 2014 as a baseline year. There was 23 million tons of organic waste. But really, these goals that they set, these targets that they set, they wanted the state to reduce the organic waste disposal by 50% in 2020. They weren't even close to that. These goals were never really attainable. And then to reduce the organic waste disposal by 75% in 2025. In 2017, those numbers are out. I believe 2018's numbers are out. The organic materials at the waste disposal facility or the landfills was at 27 million tons. So we actually increased it, just like you're saying, in that amount of time from our 2014 numbers. So
Seems to me this is more based on people and their actions versus our ability. I mean, if someone's taking green waste and they don't want to pay for the green can, they dump their grass clippings into the trash can instead. There's nothing we can do about that. They throw away food. There's
Not
nothing
yet.
we can do about that.
yeah.
Right?
Well, and that's what they're trying to get away from.
Well, I know, but that's
and on top of that, there's cost differences. Sometimes when you're taking it to these organic waste diversion facilities, the cost is a lot more than just go dump it in a landfill. The tipping fees at your landfill, it's easier to dump it than it is to recycle it. Not just
And
with
the budget
organics.
includes a bunch of little cameras for each garbage can to make sure to see what people actually throw in there.
Be careful.
You throw a banana away, $5 fine.
Yeah, they're getting there.
Yeah.
Get a spray can.
So, what exactly we're talking about here, I just put up these definitions from two bills. Currently, we're dealing with 1826, and really this is just geared to the businesses and our multifamily units in town. So they've been doing this for quite some time, the last 5 years. If they're over a certain cubic yardage waste per week, they've got to already recycle those products that you see under 1826. With SB 1383, they basically just expanded that a little bit further, and so now there's more items that you've got to recycle under this bill. And with this bill, the regulations were just finally published at the beginning of this year. We've known about this for some time, but the final regulations were just published earlier this year. They have some very accelerated timeframes, and you can see here under 2022, cities and counties, we've got to provide organics collection services to all residents and all businesses by 2022. We've got to establish an edible food recovery program, education outreach, procurement, capacity planning. And then in 2024, we've got to take action. And what they mean by that is basically giving notice of violation and enforcing penalties on folks that do not comply. So.
Yeah, we're gonna have people have enough problem with the water cop. And they're like,
Here's your
"Oh,
water
here's your
ticket.
garbage
Here's
cop
your-
too.
here's your
Well,
water ticket, here's your garbage ticket, here's your food ticket, here's your.
Yeah. And our first step with this is obviously putting an ordinance in place. We're required to put an ordinance in place by the state. I look at this as being very, very similar to the stormwater regulations that we had to do. We had a very large sweeping ordinance that went through. This is very similar to that. The state has provided a 54-page ordinance, sample ordinance. So we are going through that now with our consultant to try and only include what must be included based on the language of the bill. They seem to add a little bit more in their sample ordinances. But we do plan on bringing that to the council to review, comment sometime in the September, October frame. So you guys have an idea.
We
of
need to
what.
build some bigger jails for all these violators. That's right.
So with this bill, Each jurisdiction, you're basically given 3 options for collecting your residential waste. You can go with the 3 container service, 2 container service, or 1 container service. The big differences here are with your 2 container service and your single container service. If you elect to do that, the black solid waste material that you haul to a landfill or a facility needs to go to what the state considers as a high diversion organic facility, where they are able to obtain at least 75% of the organic material and recycle that. So just to kind of give you an idea of what that means. Right now, we take all of our material to the county Lovelace facility. That's not a facility. The state actually does not have any of those facilities that have been approved by them yet. So the infrastructure is not there. This is kind of a forced infrastructure program, the way I kind of look at it. But eventually they're going to get there, and there's facilities right now that are working toward that, because you have to get towards that. So what it means for us and what we're kind of looking at doing is keeping our 2 container system, keeping our recycling center. For the time being, we will continue to move our solid waste to Lovelace facility, but our green containers, we'll continue to use the same service for our green containers and taking it to the same facility, but every resident is going to have a green container, and they're going to have to put in food waste, food scraps, everything else in that green container as well.
What?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
You can't
Well,
scrape it into the trash bag in your house anymore. You gotta walk outside and scrape your plate into the trash can.
About who in the heck is gonna check?
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. I saw.
2022, 2023, these first 2 years are really your education years, where you're going to be educating, the public on what can go in there, what can't go in there. We're working right now with our waste facility.
But I have a question. I saw a clown show the other day that said that people in rural communities don't know where a Kinko's and an Office Max is. How are we going to do this?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to this, but it's, so yeah, basically starting 2022, all households. So right now, just to give you a perspective of where we're at, we've got about 4,500 households that have black cans. And we've got, 3,250 green cans right now. So this would mean we've got to get an additional 1,250 cans out there to single family residents. So there's a good amount that already has the green cans, but we've got to obviously get that additional 1,250 out there.
And so those people are going to pay the normal.
Pay the green can fee,
Yeah.
which is $3 right now a month, which is a fairly cheap fee, but yeah, it would just be added onto their bill once this goes out. Just to give you an idea of kind of what costs we're looking at, like I said, the 1,250 new green containers, we're looking at $90,000 for a one-time purchase of those cans, a 30% operational cost increase for additional customers during the organic collection. Keep in mind, we only do our organics collection right now on Mondays, but annually it's going to add up. We'd be looking at around $23,000, and then 15% volume increase based on what we're expecting is going to be added to the tonnage that we're currently taking.
Can I ask a question now while we're
Yeah,
thinking
go
about it?
ahead.
So what is the goal of what the state's trying to achieve here for people to eat better, sleep better, have a better environment? What's the ultimate goal by spending all this money? I mean, is there we're doing it because of X?
Well, the goal is they're wanting to reduce the emissions of methane at the landfills. So they're trying to get all that methane gas that's getting produced off the landfills. They're trying to get rid of that. They're trying to recycle.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. So what is the methane doing to people right now? Are people dying because of it, or are cars blowing up? I mean, what?
They're saying it's contributing to the global warming and it's warming.
Oh, so if we do this in
Climate change.
California, the global warming goes away. Okay. So is India going to do this, and China's going to do this, and Russia's going to do this too?
We're gonna be a world leader.
Sorry for the comment.
Sorry, James, you're
These
trying
aren't
to be-
directed at
You're
you.
trying to be serious, but sometimes things are so hilarious, we got
You
to,
know, yeah.
Gotta remember the council you're dealing with. James.
Well, every city's going through this right now, and staff has had these discussions as well. Every city is trying to figure out how the heck they're going to go through this and how they're going to get through this too. So as far as the black service, like I said, it's not really going to change. There's nothing's going to change for the residents. But at some point, once the state does come in with approving these facilities, these high diversion organic waste processing facilities, depending on where that's at, we're going to have some increased costs in hauling. We are talking to a facility right now that is going through the process of that. What they've told us and what the state has told us is that they are not going to be looking at being approved until late 2022 or 2023. But there's definitely going to be an increase in those disposal fees. So those numbers that we had before, and we don't know what those are. We don't have a clue yet. We're hoping to get those soon.
Are you going to need different garbage trucks as well?
We don't believe so, but it will probably change. The new garbage trucks that we're driving will we order depending on what's the best fit for us at that time. Right now we're set up for not hauling that far.
Okay.
But if we have to continue going further and further, or depending on where that facility is, then we'd look at different types of trucks.
Methane powered.
Yeah. Natural gas, yeah. Yes.
Good student. See, I raised my hand. I'm not like Mike.
I
So
raised my hand, you didn't see it. You were hiding behind Dan.
should we be thinking now that to start gradually increasing the
The cost? Not
Yeah.
yet. We got to go through a rate study. We can't just raise.
I'm just, I mean, I
So-
get
Well,
that.
Well, we did look at this. We did have some anticipated costs for some of this green waste coming up. We did include some of that with Elizabeth and her team and the consultant when they were doing their rate studies. So some of this is, but there's still there's a whole lot that's unknown.
I'm thinking is we need to mentally maybe get our citizens to know some of this information so they're aware it's not us that's really causing the increases. It's the state, which is basically typical of everything
Well,
though.
that's a good idea.
Well, no, you're right. And as soon as we start our outreach and education
Yeah.
program, we could definitely let them know
Because, I mean, you
exactly
look-
where this is coming from.
Those numbers are damn scary.
Yes.
4 years, we 220%.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
Did you do that math yourself?
Leo told me.
No, you're right, and you bring up a good point. We'll definitely make it a point to let everyone know that where this is really coming from. So, and then also on top of this, that was kind of the residential side of it. The commercial side of it is here. So there's currently a number of businesses that are using Ripon for its green waste service. The only thing with the compost facility that we're currently taking our green waste to is telling us is that they cannot accept any of the commercial organic food waste, just because they're only permitted to have a certain amount of food contamination at their site, which is 15%, and they can confidently say that they can take all of our residential use, the smaller usage, but depending on what type of commercial businesses, you could be looking at truckloads full of just organic food waste, and they can't handle that. So there's 3 haulers right now that are authorized to provide organic service in Ripon, Jolton Waste Management, and Bertolotti. Most businesses are currently using one of those 3, and we'll be working with those haulers to get some more outreach out to these businesses and let them know, kind of what their requirements are and what those different businesses can offer them. And in the black and gray container service, it won't really change for the businesses, but obviously the same thing as the residential side, possible increase in hauling and disposal fees increasing. Another part of this bill is the state has broken, there's an edible food recovery program. So they've broken this edible food recovery program into 2 tiers. And basically what this is they're got that target of recovering 20% of currently disposed of edible food for human consumption by 2025. So they're looking to take from what you see here in tier 1, And a lot of these businesses already in tier one are set up and they're already doing this. Like your Save Marts, I actually took a tour of their facility last year. And they recycle and they use food banks, and then they're feeding animals with, so they're already, doing a lot of that. Most of these folks in the tier one are doing that. Tier two is going to be a whole nother story, and they've got to be in compliance by 2024. For us, I don't know that we have a whole lot of 250 more, or if we have any restaurants, but health facilities, obviously Bethany Home would fall into this. So there's some education and outreach that we're going to have to go through. The county did, I actually just received an email from the county today. They did say that they were going to look at tackling this for the entire county themselves, as far as the outreach and trying to be that connector with these businesses, restaurants, and the endpoints to get this recovery program, moving forward and kind of on target. So hoping that they follow through with that. That's just another component of this whole bill. And then this here is just a sample of some of the procurement requirements that are also included in this bill. They're really the state is really pushing for like a policy to put in place, but it's not required. So I don't believe we should do that. I think we should just work toward purchasing the minimum of what they're requiring us to do and leave it at that. But yeah, you basically, they come up with a calculation of how much compost, mulch, renewable gas. And then we've got to look at our purchasing policy for our paper in-house, and we'll be starting that here next year.
They're telling us we have to buy something?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna
There's-
send all
there's
your green
targets.
can stuff over there. Oh, by the way, you gotta buy a bunch of it back.
Has this thing even gone to the courts yet? Or can it not go to the courts?
It's
until after?
law right now, yeah.
Not every law is constitutional.
This one is.
So
Not every law makes sense.
yeah, our education and outreach, for the businesses, a lot of this is already in place. We do our survey every year. We've got 160 businesses that we're in contact, and we have been in contact for over the past several years, because they're subject to some other organics and recycling requirements, and they have been for the last 5 or 7 years. So our focus is going to be those smaller businesses that are if this is all kind of new to, and then the residents, just educating our residents and letting them know what's coming, letting them know what they can put in those in the green cans, let them know why they're having to do this. Capacity planning is another part of this. So I mentioned earlier those targets that the state set, they're impossible, basically with the current facilities that are in place. So this is what Cal Recycle anticipated us needing, 50 to 100 new facilities between now and 2025.
That's a short period of time.
Yeah, so I mean, what we're kind of looking at doing is, on our local level, is looking at entering into some agreements with these facilities to, one, lock in our capacity, because everyone is fighting for capacity at these places to meet these requirements. And then two, to kind of lock in your rate, have a more stable rate, and kind of know where you're going to be at in the next 3 to 5 years. So as those come about, and as we can work towards some of these agreements, we'd obviously bring these to the council.
Would it be feasible, and is there money available that we could build our own? And then charge other cities around us? No?
That's something we have a consultant who's on board, and they did a kind of a feasibility study. You're looking at some very, very high dollars for a city this size to go into that for organics. There's so much regulation and permitting that you have to do with the state. I mean, we can continue to look at that. I know the county's looking at something like that regionally to kind of help with facilitating that, but us doing it ourselves, and what the consultant that we've talked to has kind of showed us it's not really feasible.
Is TICA already working on that?
They have,
Being able to use their
Yes.
organics with their sewage or something to
yes,
generate methane gas, because they're gonna use it to fuel their trucks.
yeah. So the person that I was in contact with is no longer there. So I'm not really sure where they're at
At Manteca?
in Antigua,
They never lose employees.
But they
That's
were
sort of an exceptional deal, isn't it?
they were in that process. I'm not sure where they're at.
They
A big
often,
groundbreaking and everything.
We do have a meeting with the county next month where all the cities will be involved and kind of see where everyone's at and where everyone's headed. So this is another component to this bill. And then here's the big one. I know Mike touched on this, but in inspection enforcement. So basically, we've got to complete annual compliance reviews. There's a whole lot to this where we have to have staff doing audits of ourselves. We have to audit our trucks to find out, how much organic material is actually going to the landfills. And the state is the one that's overseeing all of this. They're looking at us. We've got our annual reports. They're looking at our inspection reports. They'll come out and do their own annual review where they will pop lids as well.
We can just deliver it to them. We'll just take a truck and dump it on the front steps of the Capitol and say, here you go.
There you go.
No, Elk Grove.
Take a look.
Wherever.
There's a 12-acre site in Elk Grove.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the joke.
I think that's where he lives.
Yeah, so we're going through a lot of this right now with the commercial recycling, the commercial organics, and the mandatory commercial recycling. So Cal Recycle every year they're going through with our staff. Basically, it's an audit. You're looking at what businesses were in compliance, who wasn't, who was not in compliance. Did you guys issue notices to those businesses? Right now, though, there's not a whole lot of teeth with fines. And so it's for the current bills that are in place, all we do is notify. We just notify those businesses that they're out of compliance. And then if the state wants to go handle them, then they'll go after them. With this though, and the ordinance that we're going to be putting in place, there's going to be fines, penalties that'll be assessed. So once we issue those notices of violations, we're going to have to fine them if they're not in compliance. So
Like we don't have enough businesses moving out of the state.
yeah.
Don't have enough to do already.
Yeah. And then here's just our next step is, like I said before, getting this draft ordinance to council in September, October, so you guys can review that. We'll be starting our education and outreach for residential households and unfamiliar businesses in August. And really what we're doing right now is the compost facility that we're taking our greenways to. They're going to kind of give us a list of what they can actually accept there. And we want to make sure we stay on a good relationship with them and that we're not giving them, things that they can't process at their facility. So once we get that, then the outreach will really start with the residents and kind of telling them what can and can't go into each can. And then, like I mentioned, the draft agreements with the facilities, and identifying the food recovery resources and capacity. But like I said, the county did just mention that it sounds like they're going to kind of take the lead on that one. So I know that's a whole lot of information. Yeah, any questions?
James, can I ask a question? And this is a serious question now. The other ones were kind of joking around. So we just came out of COVID. A lot of businesses that are having huge financial problems. Has there been any discussion about letting these businesses recover first? Maybe Tom knows that better, before they start burdening additional debt and expenses on top of some of these people? Because some of these people are still going to be on the edge for a while because they haven't recovered 100%. This could just shut them down completely. Do you know if there's been any kind of, well, maybe we can move the 2022 date to 2023, let some of these businesses recover first?
Well, I guess the only thing I could say to that is, as far as this bill goes, that is what's required in 2022. We can't issue any fines or penalties until 2024. So really, the state and the representatives from Cal Recycle, what they've kind of told us is these next 2 years is really an educational. You've got to kind of educate all of these businesses, let them know what is required. But as far as money or anything.
So let me ask this. Should we be sending a letter maybe to the state on behalf of our businesses to kind of say, look, these people are just coming out of COVID. This isn't for you. This is for us. Send a letter saying, some of these people are just coming out of COVID and they can't handle this financially. We know that for a fact. We don't have to go count their dollars. That they can do an amendment to these things and move them on. We're not the only city that's going to be at businesses that are going to be up against something like this. The whole state's going to be up against this. and some people just haven't recovered yet. Would it make sense for us, Tom, Kevin, council, to send a letter and just request that maybe they consider moving it forward? And
You can
include
always send a letter.
I'm sorry.
You can always send a letter, but it would seem that it might be better coming from something like Cal Chamber or something like that, right? Something from the Chamber of Commerce at a statewide level, or other trade organizations.
And I don't disagree. I'm just saying we need to be the activator to make something happen here to hopefully help some of our business, whether it be the Chamber, Cal Chamber. Cal Chamber is probably on board with all this, so I'm not sure they're going to be the one to send a letter, but we can certainly send it locally to our assembly member, our state senator, and some of those people, with some logical commentary in there of why we think maybe a delay would be helpful for some of our businesses.
Certainly.
Huh? Well, I think we should. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I think we need to help try to fight and support our businesses rather than just biting off everything the state throws down at us. And I'll stop there before I get in trouble.
Yeah, so there was no action here. It was obviously just informational.
I know.
So any other comments or questions?
Heck of a way to end the meeting.
Appreciate you taking the time, James. Sorry if,
He took longer than the rest of the whole
The
meeting.
comments weren't directed at you. They were just directed at this situation. You were the messenger. Yes.
I think that's called the whipping horse. All right, Chief, anything for us?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Honorable City Council, members of the public present and at home. I just have a couple of quick items. If I could have, I have a mid-year crime report. It's a very brief one, but just kind of give an update on our UCR and total crimes reported year to date. For the first part of the year, it'd be January 1 through June 30th. As you can see, we had a slight increase from last year. Those are impacted greatly by COVID restrictions and the closing down of a lot of our businesses where a lot of our retail theft and other crimes occur. But if you look over the 17-year average that's on the screen, we are currently averaging over that period of time 639 crime reports for the first 6 months. And this year we're at 526. And for the UCR crimes, we're typically at an average of 193 for the first 6 months. We're at 190, so we're slightly below that. Sometimes it's good to get the numbers out and to talk about it briefly to misspell any errors that are being communicated or falsification of information that is being distributed through the community through whatever means. Sometimes it's important to be able to have that out there. And I'd be happy to share this information with any member of the public and have discussions if they so wish to do so. Just for an update on the UCR crimes, we do have that slight increase from last year. We actually have an increase of 23 over the 6 months. 22 of those are in simple assaults, which tend to be, for us, domestic batteries that are occurring and other family disturbances that are occurring inside of homes. The other significant increase, or the second most significant increase, is in larceny, which is an increase of 7. And then our greatest reduction has been in stolen vehicles, which was a reduction of 6. Do you have any questions, comments? Do you think I can answer on that? Again, I'll provide a more in-depth one as we get towards the end of the year on that. And then I just wanted to make sure that because we won't have another council member before National Night Out is going to be August 3rd. That'll be at the community center starting at 6 p.m. It'll run through 9 p.m. We are actually bringing back the unity in our community this year after a year of absence. Starting July 28th, we'll have community events throughout our city. Starting with Wednesday, we'll have a police and business partnership presentation at the Bank of Stockton. July 29th, we have 2 safety presentations conducted by our staff with our senior community at Bethany Home and at the Senior Center. July 30th, we'll have police officers interacting with community members and youth at our Kurt Penny Skate Park. July 31st, First, on Saturday, from 9 to noon, we will be out in front of the police department parking lot and be hosting a Shred It event for paper disposal. August 2nd, we'll have an event at the batting cages out at Midland Sports Park. That'll be a free event, and also another safety presentation with senior members at Chesapeake Landing, then culminating with the National Night Out on August 3rd. Again, these are all free events put on by our community donations and our city. So if I can answer any questions about that, I'd be happy to. National Night Out is going to be a little bit different this year from previous. We're kind of getting away of some of the more general activities such as the bounce houses and so forth, and there'll be more department presentations and demonstrations occurring that night. Especially with K9, we're going to have a motorcycle demo. We're looking to have our drone unit up, and some other fun things for us to interact with our community. And for the first time in many years, we'll be cooking on site. So we'll have staff cooking on site that night rather than cooking ahead of time and pre-packaging items. So that's all I have.
Excellent. Cool. Okay.
Just real quick, with the lifting of the COVID restrictions, we are getting back to normal slowly but surely. Tournaments at the sports park, baseball, soccer. We did have a successful baseball, softball, and t-ball recreation season this year, which was nice. We're moving forward with our soccer, and we'll get back to our usual allotment of programs moving forward.
Excellent. Ken?
Yes, just a couple items. Dan, if you could put up another PowerPoint.
PowerPoint presentations.
Actually, we did send out a survey for the downtown dining, for on-street dining and also sidewalk dining. And there's still a couple days left of the survey for people to get in their responses to the survey. I want to thank Kelly at the Chamber for reaching out to all the businesses in the downtown. We got about 26 responses back so far, which isn't a whole lot in my opinion, but that we did get some at least. Really quickly to kind of go through a little bit, it's been some interesting input that we've received. So first question, in general, do you support the installation of semi-permanent outdoor dining decks in parking spaces in the downtown? Basically 71 or 73% are in support of it, and leaving the remainder 26% not opposed to it, basically. In general, do you support sidewalk dining? So dining on sidewalks in the downtown, that one was a little higher. Obviously, you have 88% supporting that and about 11% saying no. Oops, let me get the next slide here. Question 3, on a scale 1 to 5, how concerned are you about the loss of parking in the downtown area due to outdoor dining? 1 being not concerned at all to 5 being very concerned. That's kind of a mixed bag, as you can see. You got several that are a little bit more than not concerned there, and then 7 people very concerned, and a whole host of in between there in that category. If on-street or outdoor dining is permitted on Main Street, should the number of permits issued be limited? So only giving out a couple maybe, and please indicate the number of permits you think should be issued below. You can see the different choices there. Basically, most people said all restaurants should have the opportunity to participate in the program. So the majority of folks who responded are wanting everybody to have equal opportunities there. Currently on-street outdoor dining is permitted to occupy the parking spaces directly in front of a restaurant, which in some instances, depending on the frontage of the restaurant, 4 parking spaces could be taken up. And should the number of eligible spaces be limited? 20 people said they should be allowed to, basically 20 said yes, and 4 or 6 said no on that. So should the number of eligible spaces be limited? A lot of people think yes, they should be limited. But then interestingly enough, if you answered yes to question 5, how many spaces should the on-street outdoor dining be limited to? most people said leave it as is. So leave the spaces as is, and they can take up all the spaces in front of there. So take from that what you will on that one. Question 7, if you are a restaurant business, do you plan to take advantage of the on-street outdoor dining program? Only 3 said yes, 6 said no. Keep those numbers in mind. So there's 9 that answered that question because it said if you are a restaurant. And then if you answered no to that question, are you opposed to other restaurant businesses using the program? 2 said yes, 8 said no. Then we have a question about sidewalk dining. Pretty much people they want to keep the sidewalk dining. There's 24 people that said yes, 2 that said no. And there's one question here. I know people, I guess they don't like to answer essays because we only got 2 answers on this. And we just got one that said just keep the required space for people to pass. The other one was NA. And then lastly, is the last question is please provide the type of business you operate in downtown. Remember, we had 9 businesses that answered the question that said, if you are a restaurant business, and 9 of them answered that. Well, in here, nobody says they're a restaurant business. So I don't know how to take that one either, but that's kind of what we have to date.
Kelly, do you have anything to say?
Remember, this went to.
What?
Kelly, didn't this go to all your members though? Okay, so it didn't go to your members that just are individuals. Yeah, I got one.
So this is just a kind of an update where we're at with this. We still have a few days left of the survey. Staff does plan on bringing this item back in front of City Council just for some discussion, no action at the August meeting, and maybe we get some direction on which way we might want to head with this now that we have a little bit of input. Again, still no hurry on this item, but it's kind of interesting to see the results that we have. Another interesting point to bring up is when we're talking about the downtown circulation plan, the biggest concern out of everyone and why we made some changes to the downtown circulation plan was not to lose any parking spaces at all. And we actually gained some with the way we reconfigured some of the streets, which most people were happy with, at least keeping the most parking we can within the city right away. We kind of pushed off to the side a little bit about further discussions of downtown parking if we're looking at going to be buying lots and trying to develop parking lots in different areas. That's probably a more in-depth discussion that we'll have. They're talking about forming a committee to look at some of those things. But with the downtown circulation plan, parking was the #1 priority and not losing any. And then you see the results here from 26 or so people that have talked, and it was kind of like they're fine with taking up parking spaces in the downtown to have dining. So I don't know what to take of that, but you guys can ponder that a little bit and maybe give some direction to the staff this next month so we can start working on amending the ordinance. Part of next month's discussion too is going to be, as we're rolling out of COVID, maybe getting some direction from the council about sending letters out to the businesses that we've kind of allowed to just spill outdoors, not just in the downtown area, but other areas of town where they have tents up in certain areas. You know, what's the appropriate deadline to reach out to those folks and say they got to start taking some of that stuff down, and encourage them, if they do want to have outdoor dining, to go through kind of a minor site application with the city. We'd rather see maybe patios built or outdoor space that looks a little nicer or different than just tents that were up. Obviously, the tents were up to get us through the COVID when we didn't have an opportunity for indoor dining. But at some point, I think we want to reach out to the businesses and say, okay, the COVID restrictions are lifted. We're going to get back to normal operation here, and then encourage them to work with staff if they want to continue outside dining. So those are some of the discussions we'll have hopefully this next month at our meeting. And then the last item is we do have a planning commission on Monday. Diamond Pet Food is trying to put up is asking permission to put up a 130,000 square foot warehouse to house some more product. Obviously, with the approval of the 4th line, they're going to need some extra storage there. And then the planning commission will be hearing some potential amendments to our detached accessory structure buildings. I know when we adopted our accessory dwelling unit ordinance, the council had asked staff to look at a couple things with that, with a resident in town that had brought up some issues with that when it was passed through. So that's the other item on the commission, and that's all I have.
Are there any houses being built right now? There's a
Any
couple
what?
houses being built that looks like they have detached buildings. I don't know if they're just garages or if they're.
There's two houses on North Ripon that they do have a detached, it's a garage in the back. It's not living quarters at all at this point, but it's a detached extra garage and then some extra space back there for like a pool house.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, we did get comments from a neighbor on one of those that's framed up. It is 10 feet away from the back property line, which is what our ordinance is for detached structures. If they opted to put in an accessory dwelling unit, they could be 4 feet off the back property line and off the side property line. That's the state
Well, that's
requirement.
what I was
So-
just wondering, yeah, is when people start, especially on infill lots like that, or whatever, are people going to go buy that lot and build specifically a house with a ADU already on it? And I see that being an issue.
Because both of those houses have garages at the
Right.
front. And I saw that thing in the back and I thought, my gosh, they're building it.
It's an
the
extra
start.
space. It's extra like storage space. It's kind of a smaller garage and they do have like some space in there. They don't have a kitchen facility in them at all. They're not accessory dwelling units, but so they are 10 feet off the back property line, but if they wanted to make an accessory dwelling unit, they could
When
have
they
pushed
go
it,
up for sale, see what the listing
pushed it
says.
further back. So that's all we have.
I have a question about this survey. Are the results, I mean, if this was done on paper, you could sit down and put three of them together and start figuring out who said what. This is electronic though, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Is there a way to come in and, because I'm kind of interested in some of these responses, and there's some of them you could look at one. They're either saying yes on page 1 or page 3 and no on page 4. Well, I'd like to know how many of those there are, because that begins to affect the credibility of this when I have to make decisions.
So there is an ability to export the information out and go participant by participant and kind
I
of see
may
what
be
the
coming
answers
in to
are.
see you about
Most
that.
of them obviously didn't fill out their contact information. They could remain anonymous, which is fine. But you can at least go through each one and see if they answered yes to one question and no to the other one and
That's
contradicted
exactly,
themselves.
I don't
on
care
it.
who they are, but if there's a bunch of these people that said, yeah, I'm a restaurant, but no, I'm not, I'm going to be interested when they get upset about what we decide to do.
So
Yeah.
No. Any other comments, questions for Ken?
No.
Jesus, that was in the third. of the
James, you
meeting.
got any more good news for us?
No, nothing more to report.
What about water use?
I will send those to the council.
It's been hot. It's not good this
I'll
way.
take care of it for you.
The May numbers were 15%. I don't have June's numbers yet. So we had reduced our usage by 15% from the 2013 numbers for May.
Nice. I'll talk to you, remind me about a water issue I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
After me. Elizabeth.
I just put the project list on in front of you. Just gives an update of the projects, but nothing further to report.
All right, Kevin. Nothing to report. Hey. Oh, Tom, do you have anything for us? Sorry, almost forgot you were there.
Since you blacked out.
No, Mr. Mayor, I have no report.
Thank you. Mr. Wheeler?
No, nothing to report.
Come on, you have something. Nothing? Nothing.
Zippo.
El Zappo.
Well, I've got lots of things. I'm gonna make you wait.
Okay, we'll see you
Your
later.
meeting, boss. Go ahead.
It is.
Mike hit the ballot.
Go ahead and talk
No,
to
I'm gonna
yourself.
hold on to this. No, sort of related to what Ken was saying, we did have a economic development committee meeting where a couple things came out of it. One, want to potentially start a committee to evaluate parking. So I think we will probably set some group of council, city staff, chamber members and members of the public probably to evaluate and just be a committee to try and address parking issues going forward. So we'll probably create a committee, and that will need council action to add it to our committee list. The other thing we talked about was just maybe considering or addressing opportunities for signage and make more business friendly visually downtown, to be able to identify where places are at, something to consider. Then maybe not immediately, but as we're working through the downtown circulation and improving accessibility to downtown businesses, something we want to consider. So I think that with the couple that was in here tonight, it might be, we created the Citizens Issues Committee. I forget what we called it, but it might be a place to bring that particular issue to and to
A
address
few
that.
years back, we talked about, I can't remember if the chamber was involved in it or not, but we talked about like placards.
Yep.
And
We're back at that type of
Yeah,
discussion.
okay.
Kelly shared with me some of the stuff that was talked about in the
And
past.
you
so.
do nice, you could do that very nice and direct people around town.
Yep. Chief, I know in the news, there's been, Ripon PD in reports from the sheriff's department, some social media stuff, some things going on. So just want to say thanks to you for the work that your department's doing, keeping the city protected and safe, and always thinking about your guys and keeping them in our prayers and thoughts. So just want to say thanks for everything they do. And if you could tell them that, we'd appreciate that. And thank you to everybody for listening, whoever's on, Kelly for sticking it out for us. And one more thing, events coming up. Chamber's doing some events. Brews and Bites sold out.
Thursday,
And then the installation dinner on the 21st.
next Wednesday.
Anything else? Main Street Day, October 16th. Excellent. And Farmers Market on Thursday is still going on, right?
Yep.
So, good stuff. Get to it. All right, meeting adjourned.